We're back with another episode of All the Smoke Fight. Got a little different guest today. The chairman of Matchroom Sports, promoter Eddie Hearn. How you doing, brother?
Doing good, mate. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
You don't look any different.
Hey, I'll take it. we got some history, man. We go back and, we've had our share of banter throughout the years, but it's just all been out of a competitive spirit, and I believe in mutual respect. So I saw you and Terence have a little back and forth the week of the fight. First of all, why do you do that with the fighters?
Because it's my job to create narrative, noise, conversation, right? When you got two guys like Crawford and Madrimov, no one's really going to say anything, right? I would never go up to a fighter and say, right, at this head-to-head, you need to... And actually, I've been in the game a long time. It actually still fascinates me that actually happens, where fighters will agree to have a little bit of an argy-bargy,
Sure.
you were the kind of guy, I know, and I was involved with you really just for the Super Six, Paul Smith fight, and you weren't that guy, and nor's Terence, right? And, if I went up to Terence and said, could you just, because I said to him even before that head-to-head, I said, hey, we're going to get some stuff going today.
Oh, you told him?
Yeah, but not I know Terence, and he's like, nah, listen, I like these guys, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay. And, people, we live in a world today where being a great fighter is fine.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, people want drama. People want conversation. And if I have to be the fool guy to give them that, and I also had a little bit with Jared Anderson as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I'm giving my opinion of that fight. And he came up to me and he said, oh, I saw what you said. I said, yeah. I said, it's a 50-50 fight. I said, I think you might get beat. What? I said, yeah, let's talk about it. Let's get the cameras in. Next thing, that's going viral. It's all about driving interest in the show. That's my job.
Yeah.
I never want to disrespect a fighter. And I'll never, if you look at the fighters that even the ones that I don't represent, Terence, hopefully one day, Shakur, I champion those guys. I tell everyone, they were brilliant. They are brilliant. And I don't even have any skin in the game with them. But for me, you've got to create conversation. Yeah. Sometimes it can make me a bit annoying and sometimes
just a little bit.
Yeah. It wasn't really your cup of tea.
Just
but, but
I just took it out on your fight.
It showed, true. Yeah, true. Yeah,
that's how I got you back.
That was painful.
But how much of it do you believe? Do you really believe the stuff you're saying to these fighters?
Yeah, I mean.
And how much of it is the promoter thing?
It depends. I mean, it depends how I'm feeling at the time. It depends on the narrative, what we need to do. With the Terence stuff, I'm just trying to bring his personality out. What I said to you earlier, I think Terence is really funny. I love the way he lives his life. I love the way he brings his kids. If you watch his kids with the wrestling and stuff like that, he's just a winner. And I feel that, you got guys who are really, really, really good, and they're not really hell bent on becoming a star. I put you in that category. I put Terence in that category. Maybe Shakur, where they feel like they don't really want to. Terence ain't bothered about going to premieres and being on the front cover of magazines and stuff like that. But unfortunately, in the business, we have to try and make sure he has that kind of value commercially. So it's getting the narrative and the moments right to just showcase his personality a little bit. You made a great point earlier when we were over there about media opportunities. A lot of them are a waste of time. But now, wasn't the case when you were fighting, but now you can control your own narrative through content.
Absolutely.
Not by acting, but just letting people see you.
But there's a flip side to it, right? Because I've seen so many young fighters. They say they want to be a star, and then they crash and burn because their focus is they're coming out of character. They're trying to be the next Floyd. You know how many fighters have tried to be the next Floyd Mayweather and crashed and burned? You know how many fighters tried to be the next Ali and crashed and burned? I think that the star thing is overstated. Some people are not in the game to be what you guys, promoters, boxing people would consider a star. They're just there to beat the stars. And they've made a massive income. They're at peace. They're okay with who they are when they leave the sport. And they got a reputation that they feel comfortable with when they go drop their kids off at school. So I think sometimes promoters have a one-track mind, we got to do this to make you this. It's not in the cards for some people just based on what they stand for, how they move. But they've made a massive amount of money, and who's to say that amount of money is not enough?
But for us, the business is numbers and the business is interest. So we have to do a job for our broadcaster. our job is determined by the numbers that are generated, whether it's at the gate, whether it's, on the platform. Mm-hmm. And generally you do that by creating a profile and a brand. I completely agree with you. I mean, I think the extension of this, I want to be a star on social media is actually an extension of social life today and the social media world, which is quite cringe at times,
most of the time.
I know you're the kind of guy that will look at a lot of these young fighters, some of which don't even have the ability to be a champion. Yeah. But, you can now become a star without actually having the ability. You can become a star because you got a big following.
Well, it's perception.
Yeah.
If my following is big enough and my people feel like I'm in the conversation, or if they feel like I'm the best or the GOAT or whatever you want to label, that's enough for me.
Yeah.
It's not about being, it's about, as long as the perception says that I am, I'm sufficient with that. Obviously, many, many years ago, it was about proving it. Like, oh, Eddie's, you the other top guy? Well, I'm going to show you and prove. It's not about proving anymore. It's about perception.
Yeah.
Perception trumps reality in this day and age. But let's start from the beginning. I met your father, Barry Hearn, at the Hall of Fame. And, obviously he has a rich history just in business in general. Talk to me a little bit about young Eddie Hearn growing up.
Well, young Eddie Hearn was born into a family, obviously, with my mum and my dad, Barry. They were from a very, very humble background. Parents my dad's dad drove a bus around London, and they lived in a very small house, council house, which is kind of provided by the government. And he was a working class guy. He actually worked very hard at school, became a chartered accountant. So he's a financial genius, and that's something that he lives and dies by within the business. And kind of as I was born, he started making money. He got into sport, snooker, first of all, and then eventually boxing. And as I came into the world, he started making a lot of money. So I grew up pretty well, but with a real working class mentality. Like, he was very strict on me and strict on me through sports more than anything. So he used sport and the competition within sport to educate me. So all I did as a kid was play sport. All I did as a kid would compete against him.
Right.
And we were brutal against each other in every sport, and although we had money, he would always educate me that you get given nothing, and you have to work like a dog, basically. And, that's probably given me my work ethic today. But when he started promoting boxing, I was 8 years old. And from that day, that night, I went to all the shows from 8 years old, watching greats like Nazim Hamed, who he promoted, Lennox Lewis, Chris Eubank, Nigel Benn, Frank Bruno. I mean, he promoted everybody of the great British fighters. And I spent a lot of my early years in those changing rooms, carrying belts out. I was the annoying kid, but I was Barry Hearn's son. No one really knew my name. I was just Barry's son, which I was fine with because my dad was my hero. But like, deep inside, the competitive instinct, I guess, during those years was, how do I actually make something of myself? Like, if I had a choice, I would like to be an athlete, cricket, so whatever, but I wasn't good enough. So over the years, 14, 15, 16, probably when I look back, probably wasn't, not the nicest kid. I always had a good heart, but I was very flash. You imagine I'm flying around the world, I'm in Vegas for Naz against Barrera. You know what I mean? I'm in the changing rooms.
So you were a spoiled
brat? He wouldn't let me be a spoiled brat, but I lived a life where, and now with my kids, similar to you having kids as well, it's very difficult when you do have money and you do want to spoil your kids to maintain that working class mentality. That's where he did such a good job, because I work harder than anybody in my industry, right? Like,
you feel
till I fall asleep, right? And he should be proud of that, because I think doing that coming from a wealthy background is particularly hard, So growing up in boxing, I never once said, I want to be like my dad. I want to be a promoter. I just thought, I'm going to go out. I'm going to work in the money markets. I'm going to, a lot of my friends went down that route, stock markets. I'm going to make money. I loved money. I loved selling. I loved hustling. We would always, he would always put his coins in a jar, and I would count them all and stack them all up, and he would make me clean his shoes for £1 a pair. And I was built up around money, sport, and competition. And but also looking back now, the education that I had through boxing was an education that sets me up perfectly for all of this stuff. So, you know, being in the changing rooms when the guys are getting their hands wrapped, be it sitting in the gyms, watching sparring at 10, 11, you know, watching fighters go on their road runs, watching them make weight, all of this kind of stuff was an education for me, you know, in my early teens, really. And it was only really when I got to kind of 30 years old that I fell into boxing. I was already working in sport. I was representing athletes on the PGA Tour, you know, through another company that I was working with. And eventually I found my way back to boxing.
But as your love grew for the sport and you became a promoter, you've been a promoter how many years now?
About 15 years.
What is the hardest thing about being a promoter?
Probably, I would say the conversation. The hardest thing is there's no barriers to entry in boxing, right? So for all the education that I had and for all that I know about the sport, I could be sitting down negotiating a deal with someone that knows nothing about the sport and nothing about the business. Mm-hmm. And we try to run a great business so that we can honor our contracts, we can pay people on time, you know, we can be true to our word. But in boxing, everybody feels they have a value, but the value is actually black and white. Mm-hmm. But the problem with boxing, and it's not even a problem, it's good for the fighters, is that every now and again, something bigger comes along. Someone's got an investment fund, you know, Saudi Arabia coming to boxing, you know, and your conversations where that guy said he wants 10 million for a fight, and you're looking at the numbers going, it's 4.
Yeah.
You go, okay, don't worry about it. And then someone comes along and gives them 10. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so you got to be consistent in the business. You've got to be consistent on the numbers. You've got to always pay the fighter as much money as you can. But the hardest thing and the most frustrating thing is the conversations. I think trust as well. You know, I live for the relationships with the fighters where you can share a journey together. Like for me, whether it's AJ, whether it's those guys, and you know, the fighter that's with you no matter what, they say to you, you know, a good example is someone like Tony Bellew, right? You know, Tony from Creed. He never even really wanted to see a contract. He'd just say to me, I trust you, whatever, you know. No, but we were at a stage, you know, he didn't come through like the Olympics, you know, he came through uneducated about the business and actually was treated badly within the business. But we formed a relationship where there was so much trust. Obviously, he wanted to know the money that he was getting, but it's hard to explain. When someone says to me, I trust you, please do the best job for me and I'll do what you say. That kind of trust and feeling, you never let someone down in that respect. Do you know what I mean? I would never, like that. That's the ultimate honor for me, for a fighter to say, you're my guy. I know you got my back. You know, and I know people operate in different ways. People like to have a closer relationship with their own business in boxing. You're looking at that going, what? But for me, and AJ's not like that, but at the same time, he puts his trust in me to navigate his career. And that's an unbelievable honor for someone of that size, you know. And you got guys, you know, we were talking about Jay and Joe, like that, to have that relationship with people, especially when you leave sport. Yeah. It's really nice, I think.
That's rare for us here in the States, and especially in the boxing space. Why do you think promoters, generally speaking, have an unsavory reputation? As guys, you have to watch and shake your hand. You got to check your pockets and make sure you still got
because a lot of them are untrustworthy. But the key component is a lot of them run poor businesses. And
Explain that to me.
Well, I don't think they understand the accounts. They don't understand the fight, the show. I think the game is generated and works around ego. I know promoters now that will pay a fighter a number so that you don't get him and worry about it later. Worry about the maths later. Worry about the accounts later. Worry about the P&L later. Mm-hmm. So what happens is next thing you do a show, the pay-per-view numbers don't hit. The gate don't sell. You've lost 5 million on a show. Every fighter's going, I need my money on the Monday. Yeah. You hear it all the time, Trey. How many fighters are waiting on money? 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, a year crazy. On. Oh, we'll pay you a little bit. We'll pay you half. That's the norm.
Eddie, I need mine the night of the fight.
Cool. Listen, you will never find a fighter that I've ever represented that hasn't said he's paid me on time. Mm-hmm. Because we do the business right. The numbers are right. And I don't want to sit down with when a fighter's asking for that 10 million, I'm going, yeah, but you know, you're educated enough. You were always educated enough to have that kind of conversation. Trey, let me show you the numbers for this show, right? Here's the gate. Here's the pay-per-view revenue. Here's the sponsorship. Here's the licensing. Here's the closed circuit TV. These are the costs of running a show. This is what's in the show. And when I have a bigger relationship with a fighter, if it's AJ, if it's Canelo, you let them own the show, own the revenue of the show. It's the greatest model that you can have with a fighter because they see everything. Do you know what I mean? There's no arguments because sometimes you do a fight with someone and they're on a purse and they look around in the stadium and it's like someone saying to him, "Oh, Eddie Hearn's made 20 million tonight out of you." It's like, no, but they'll believe it. So for me, I love that model where we can work as a partner and say, no, we take a commission to work for you and you own the revenue of the show. You approve the costs, you approve the budget, you approve the undercard, and you eat what you kill in the respective pay-per-view. One of the problems now with pay-per-view is sometimes it doesn't work. You got Tank against Ryan Garcia does $1 million, and then you got Tank against Ryan might do a third of that. But the promoter of the show told him, it will do $1 million. And then the reporting comes in and both fighters go, what? I'm 10 million down on what, but that's called the value. Your value, the pay-per-view numbers are very transparent in terms of your commercial value. Now it can be promoted well, but generally some guys sell pay-per-view, some guys don't.
Yeah. If Eddie Hearn could promote any fighter in history, who would it be?
I mean, he probably didn't even need a promoter, but you'd have to say Ali, right? Because he's like, he had it all. We talk about superstar status, and then we talk about ability. There's the two combined. My favourite fighter of all time was Sugar Ray Leonard. Growing up, I love that era, and I feel that there's always a conversation of greatness. Really comes over time, and it actually comes when you've retired. So, like Leonard, Hagler, Hearns, Durand, like that era. Who are those guys now? And do we have those guys now that will be remembered in the same breath as those fighters? I actually think Terence is one of them. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But boxing's very different now. It's behind a paywall. Back then when those guys were fighting, it was, a mass product doing millions in free TV audience a lot of the time. Yeah.
Amongst all the promoters, companies that are out there, how do you rate yourself? How does Eddie Hearn rate himself as a promoter?
I mean, I'm not low on ego, but let's be honest, as a promoter, right? Forget the platform, as a promoter, as a voice, as someone that delivers the show. And I'm talking about a dying breed of people that go up on the dais, right? And say, welcome, this is my show and let me tell you why you should come. They don't do it anymore. If you look at PBC, they don't have a front man. Bob's 93, right? Oscar's Oscar.
Oscar's Oscar.
So, a lot of the time, I do think I'm really good at that, but I don't really have that much competition because now the promoters want to get the network guy or the reporter up there going, "Oh, hi," to the fighters. Like, no, I need to create that. We had an incident yesterday with Jarrell Miller and Jared Anderson.
I saw it.
Right? And after the press conference, Jared Anderson weren't very happy. He's like, why are they asking me questions about Jarrell Miller? Fuck you. I was like, mate, you understand? You know how many people will watch that little clip and that's what they want to see. They want to see your personality. Don't take it personal.
Yeah.
This is a show. And, I think we're really well placed in the US market. That no UK promoters come to America ever, done a big TV deal and been in the conversation as one of the top promoters. I know it's PBC, it's Top Rank, it's Madrimov. It's like the big three, if you like, and there's others as well. But Top Rank are a good company. They have a huge history in the sport. But Bobby's 93.
He is.
I don't see the bulldog spirit in that company to drive the business forward over the next 5 or 10 years.
Right.
You got Todd. Todd's a good businessman, but he don't live and breathe boxing.
You don't
Bob
think so?
does. No, I know he doesn't. But Bob does. Bob's amazing. 93. I mean, I wouldn't mind leaving the game at some point while I've still got time to actually enjoy my life. It's a passion for me, but the business is, right? But Bob, you can't, we did a fight once in the UK and they did an evening with me and Bob, right? And they said, Eddie, what's your proudest moment as a promoter? And I was like, I did AJ against Klitschko, Wembley, 90,000, blah, 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 blah. And they went, Bob, what about you? And he went, well, it's between the Thriller in the Manila and the Rumble in the Jungle. And I was like, blimey.
Hey,
I mean, that's
what you gonna say about that?
I know. So we don't always get on.
Yeah.
But I respect him. I respect the hustle. I respect the grind, and I respect the passion and his achievements.
Well, to that point, I sat down with Terence Crawford, and he and I had dialogue about, do the promoters really dislike each other? I know years ago, you all met in New York. I think you were a part of that. And you guys signed your signatures as a union. I don't think anything came of it. Terrence's take was, these guys really don't dislike each other. That's a show. Is it really a show when you guys go back and forth?
I think they dislike me. 100. I mean, Oscar can't
because
stand
you're
me.
not from here, or just because of the type of business you're doing?
I think the way I sort of talk a lot, and obviously, I think anyone that comes into a new market from another country steps on toes. Like I don't dislike any of them. But I think that what happens is Bob. This happened with Shakur, and this happened with Terence. Once Bob knows they're off, they're dead to him. Do you know what I'm saying? So when Shakur's got 2 fights left and he goes, when my top rank deal's up, I'm not re-signing. And I don't blame Bob, by the way. Like, where's your motivation to grow that fighter for the future? Terence the same. Bob got it in his head because Bob lost money on Terence, right? So he'd do a pay-per-view with Terence, lose money, and Bob would be like, the famous line from Bob, remember, where he said about Terence Crawford, he went, why would I do a Terence Crawford fight when I could go and buy another mansion in Beverly Hills for the fight? Do you know what I mean?
Let me ask you that. But I understand the fighter sort of showing their hand. I'm not sure fighters should do that. If you want to leave, that doesn't have to be public information because you will see a promoter acting different.
Yeah.
But somebody like Terence Crawford, like, is that a fair statement when he hasn't got a real shot at pay-per-view? We're talking about Victor Postol and
Amir Khan. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, is that a real fair shot? When
I feel like the way to you don't just become a pay-per-view star. You have to be built from an early part of your career if you want to do the big numbers. And I just feel like Terence Crawford wasn't built properly coming through. I look at Terence and I look at Shakur Stevenson. I'm probably a little bit disjointed because I'm from the UK. And if we had Terence Crawford and we had Shakur, these guys would be national heroes, right? They'd be like superstars. I know, but I also get the feeling that America, like, still America. You still love sport. I know that boxing's not, the biggest sport in America, but these are quite like, how good is Shakur? He's a 3-division world champion. He's 27 years of age, right? He's not even really come out of first gear, has he?
I don't believe so.
I mean, but really, he could walk out now down here in LA. I don't think many people know he is. Even Terence. These guys I feel like should be, but you build them from the ground up. So what happened with Terence was he was never really built or promoted correctly. And then his purses, because he was so good and because he was winning everything, were going up and up and up. And then Bob looks at it and goes, we need to put him on pay-per-view because ESPN or wherever it is at the time aren't paying them the rights fees to pay what this guy wants. So we roll the dice on pay-per-view and it flops, right?
But it's set up to flop when you're facing a Jeff Horn.
Yeah, but then I guess you're right in the respect of when he fights Errol Spence, the numbers are much better.
Of course.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But when he fights Jeff Horn, when he fights Posto, when he fights Amir Khan, when he fights Kell Brook.
Were those fights ever really going to sell?
Not really, but what happens, Dre, is the fighters' purses become so expensive. The only model that works is pay-per-view, but you're rolling the dice because if you don't hit the numbers, someone's got to make up the deficit on the minimum. And that will be Bob, right? So when Terence does his deal to fight Kell Brook or Amir Khan, he says, I want 3 million, 4 million minimum guarantee, plus I want my upside on the pay-per-view over 150. It ends up doing 60,000 buys, and the break-even point is 125 for top rank, and they're in for 3 million. And then Bob looks at it and goes absolutely berserk, and from that day, Bob goes, he's a waste of money. Not, do you know what? This is frustrating. This kid's special. We've got to find a way to get to 125. Bob's already made his mind up, right? And then the conversation, then Terence goes, I won that. Next fight, I want 4 million guarantee, 5 million. And Bob goes, I lost 3 million on that. You. And then
it's not. This is my point. And I get everything you're saying, and you're right. But from the fighter standpoint, you don't get what's fair. You get what you negotiate. Let me elaborate. We're into a negotiation, fighter promoter, and these minimums are being brought up. Right? And as a fighter, so you got to give the fighter a little bit more credit. If I know historically I haven't been promoted as a pay-per-view star. Just been the bare minimum. Just speaking generally. I'm gonna make sure my minimums are strong because at the end of the day, that's what I'm guaranteed. Now, you crying about what you didn't make, it's got nothing to do with me. It does in a sense.
Yeah.
Because it can hurt me.
You're right. You got to fight your own.
But hear me. I'm saying this is the fighter's standpoint. You know the promoter's standpoint. The fighter said, if I know historically I haven't gotten the push that I feel like I need, my minimums have to be strong. Just because you try to prop up a pay-per-view against a Jeff Horn, Amir Khan, or whoever the case may be, Amir Khan's way past his prime. That's not going to sell. I know it. You know it. And then when the pay-per-view doesn't do what you think it's going to do, or we know it's not going to sell. But now I'm on the hook for you losing money, and then that's the narrative that's got put out there. That's the game that promoters play.
But this is where you done a great job, right? Because you were in fights that I feel like you knew, you know, you did good numbers, but you knew probably wouldn't deliver the numbers that would justify the purse that you was asking for. And that's when you get that between the promoters, right? So you go, I'm the greatest fighter in the world. This is a big fight. This is my purse for this fight, right? And the promoter goes, yeah, but we're just not going to hit those numbers. You go, I don't really care. To be honest with you, that ain't really my problem. This is my number. Yeah. And
I look at it.
But you were smart because you wouldn't have rolled the dice on the pay-per-view only without the guarantee.
I might. If I
in
know
the right fight. Only in
the right fight, the right time, and what is your rollout plan? See, promoters don't give fighters a lot of credit, and I think that would bridge the gap a little bit in terms of the communication. And maybe promoters don't want to communicate better with fighters. Maybe they just look at them like
that they do, but a lot of the time
commodities, and you just go fight and shut up.
But also, Dre, a lot of the time the teams don't want you to have that relationship with a fighter. My favorite kind of relationship is to have those conversations with a fighter where you can sit down and talk through the business. Some don't have the ability to do it, and some don't want to do it.
But some don't.
But a lot of the time, the manager definitely don't want you in.
That's true.
Because they become, I feel like, one of the biggest wastes of money for a boxer. Sorry, because I've got some good friends that are managers. Is a manager.
That's a heavy statement.
No. If you have the right promoter and the right lawyer, right? But a lot of the time, listen, a good manager is valuable. A manager is a waste of time and a waste of money if you have a good relationship with a promoter and a solid lawyer to look at your contracts, right? Because, you know, I want to have that relationship where I sit down and we can talk it out. I like talking it out with fighters. Some of them, look, you can't, you know, it's unfair for a lot of fighters to be in that negotiation.
It's too much fun.
Yeah, but sometimes they're the best relationships, you know. But you ran your business well, and the you know, your reputation was always he wants a lot of money, and he ain't gonna fight unless he gets it. Do you know what I mean?
But
so you got people, and that there's pressure to make fights. You know, you look at that Kovalev fight that you had and the rematch. There was pressure to make those fights. You know,
if you have a model on how you want to promote, or you're only willing to spend a certain amount of money to promote, that's not always the fighter's fault. Now, if you have a dynamite plan laid out and I just refuse and I tell you I don't want to do anything, I'll see you fight night. I'll see you the week of the fight. It's a different conversation. But sometimes when a fighter's negotiating, that's not the first contract they've had with that promoter. They know the history. It's a give and take. And I love
you were always fighting. You know, battling outside of the ring as well, especially not towards the end of your career, but you fought for, you know, you fought for freedom, really, a lot of the time. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I knew this was going to end one day.
Yeah.
And I have to look back and be able to justify the time away from my family. And I don't want to have any regrets. Tell me about the game right now, the sport of boxing, and where it's at, and do you like the direction? Turki and his team have come in. You've had a partnership. He's made a partnership with several promoters. How do you feel about what's going on?
I think that it's an amazing time for fighters. You know, I mean, you look at some of the purses that the fighters are receiving. I never look at a fighter, and there's a lot of the older guys, talked about them earlier, will look at how much a fighter's on and go, that's ridiculous. He should be. It's like, look, guys, good luck to him. Fuck me. And there's a lot of fighters at the moment that are getting paid well beyond their commercial value. Good luck to them. Doesn't mean we have to do it, or sometimes we might roll the dice, you know. But also, like you're saying, I know, you know, I might not be in this game forever. I've got to look out for myself. I've got to look out for my own business. Now, although you're taking physical risks and I'm not, we still have to run a business. You know, it's not just like, oh, we lost 3 million on that one, 4 million. We'd be idiots.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, but Turkey and his influence in the sport, that obviously the money that's being inputted through the ecosystem of boxing through Saudi Arabia is amazing. And what it's actually doing is it's making big fights. It's making boxing bigger. It's making more people interested in boxing. It's making the broadcasters go, actually, we're doing good numbers here. We've got a good schedule here. It's making the viewership increase. It's making ticket sales increase as well. I mean, we've been doing, consistently now for this year, our biggest gates. You know, Bam against Estrada in Phoenix, Subriel Matias in Puerto Rico, Boots the other week in Philly, 14,000. Like, some people sometimes forget that when boxing becomes bigger, it actually benefits everybody.
Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia. How did that fight get made and what was your involvement?
So I did a one-fight deal with Devin. I mean, I had Devin from the early stage of his career. Good kid, very loyal. Got to a stage where he won the world title with us. We were chasing Undisputed, chasing the George Kambosos fight. Lou DiBella signed Kambosos, got some money, wanted to freeze me out with Bob. And basically, I couldn't make the fight for Undisputed. And the only way Devin could do it was to sign a 3-fight deal with Top Rank to do it.
Oh.
And it was a horrible time because 90% of fighters, 95% of fighters wouldn't have even phoned me. They would have just gone, sorry, Eddie, bye. Do you know what I mean? Because my contract was up with him.
Okay.
And he phoned me, he said, look, can you make this fight? I want to. We always said to each other, we're going to do Undisputed together. That was like our little thing. Yeah. And he's like, Bill was probably just saying, sign it, but that's fine. I understand it. But Devin was really loyal to us and good. And in the end, I said to him, mate, you got to do it. I can't deliver you the fight. And you have to take this fight.
Okay.
So he took his 3-fight deal, finished there, came back to us. We just said we'd go fight by fight. He fought Regis in San Francisco. Yeah. And then Oscar offered him the fight to fight Ryan. We came in, we helped him, we were part of the team. He looked after us as well. And yeah, I think there were a lot of mistakes in that fight. We weren't across it like we would have been if we were part of his team.
The business side.
Yeah, I think so.
It seemed from the outside looking in that the negotiations went pretty quick. Was it a tough negotiation or was it
No,
easy?
I mean, both guys, you talk about minimums, both guys rolled the dice on the numbers with no minimums, because they saw Garcia tank and saw the numbers and presumed it would replicate a similar model.
Did you think it would?
No. And I told him that. I said, this is what you'll make for the fight. And he said, no, I'll make this. And actually what he made was exactly what I said he would make. And, there were mistakes in the fight. There were mistakes around the weigh-in. There were mistakes, I think around the preparation. I mean, I respect Devin. I like the kid a lot, but sometimes I think this as well. Like, you can lose your direction a little bit in terms of you think now you're that big that you know all the right decisions to make. And, when I go in and sit in that changing room and I see 30 people in there screaming and shouting, and he's putting on his essentials boots that he's had specially made for him, and it takes him 20 minutes to get them on, and you've got 4 different trainers, and, I'm it's only after the fact. It's always after defeat when you make the change, isn't it? It's never, when you're winning, you never look and go, actually, it's getting a bit crazy in here. I don't think this is, because you're winning.
I like to say that winning covers a multitude of sins.
Yeah.
It's a lot of things that should be fixed, but the winning, you just cover it up and you keep moving.
But I think the hardest thing for Devin in that fight was what Ryan was doing.
Let me go back to the weight. Ryan came in 3 pounds over. I heard he came in, he showed up the week of the fight 15 pounds over. Don't know if you guys heard that, but I know he had some weight issues. And Ryan said that Floyd Mayweather told him not to get that 3 pounds off.
Do you believe that?
I was getting ready to ask you that.
I mean, you probably know Floyd. I bet. I don't. I wouldn't have thought so. But at that point, for the launch press conference, I met a Ryan Garcia that changed so much from the Ryan Garcia that I knew. And I don't know him that well, but I've met him a few times. Very nice guy, very, polite, great looking kid, like fresh face. And then I saw this kid at the launch press conference. This is like 8 weeks before the fight.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the has happened to Ryan Garcia?
It's different.
Right? That was 8 weeks out.
Yeah.
It got so much worse to the point where at the press conference on the Thursday and the weigh-in, I'm actually looking at him going, like, one, I can't believe he's even in this fight. 2, I can't believe people are letting him fight. And 3, is this for real or is it an act? Right? Because I think, and I had an argument with Tank a while back where I said, when he fought Ryan Garcia, I said, Tank is not an overthinker, right? He's just a bad motherfucker, right? I saw that. You don't have to get in his head like, come on, Gervonta. Are you okay? Are you, you switched on? He's just and like, go. Mm-hmm. You know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. He didn't like that because he thought I was being disrespectful. And I probably phrased it in a wrong kind of way. But what I meant was, it's an asset. Ryan is emotionally and mentally not strong like Tank in battle, right? So sometimes you have to reassure them. You have to make, all that kind of stuff. And Devin is also, he's a young, bright, he's not, I don't think he has the same mentality as Gervonta Davis. You don't? I think he has a lot more assets in his mentality than Gervonta. Okay. But in that one where you don't, like, he was looking at Gervonta Davis in the ring that night, at Ryan. And I was in the ring with him. And I was looking at Devin and I was saying to him, hey, come on, look at the state of him. Like, Ryan weren't even in shape, really. I was going,
wait, what do you mean? He was
just like, I don't know what this guy's, Ryan's in the ring.
This is pre-fight?
This is in the ring.
Pre-fight?
Yeah. And Ryan's like this. Like, before they're announcing him. Like, honestly, you're looking at this kid going, what? Like, and Devin's like this. Like, thinking, I think he just did his head in. You know what I mean? And I'm saying to Devin, hey, let's switch on now, because I know he's thinking, like, is this guy for real? Don't forget, through that whole build-up, everyone's telling Devin, he ain't going to fight. I didn't think he'd make the fight. I
didn't think he was going to make it either.
You imagine training every day. I mean, Devin's a pro, good pro. Yeah. But still, you've got, like, is he even going to show up, this guy? Next thing, you're in the ring thinking, but I think Devin is the kind of guy, every fight is different. I think you're a smart fighter. AJ's like that. You need to be, and I just feel like that through Devin, the whole
was
thing.
Was that a strategy from Garcia?
No, because afterwards he says it was. But look at what's happened
He's
since.
Continued.
He's imploded even worse. Yeah. There's nothing strategic about this. The guy's just, he's out there.
When did you know we got a problem?
About 30 seconds into the fight when he landed his first left hook. Did you see it? I mean, like, Ryan looked massive. And that's when I say the mistakes. The mistake for me when you come in 3.5 pounds over, that's when you have to protect your fighter. Not financial. Not bothered about another 400, 500,000, 800,000, whatever. I will never forget, because it was one of my best educations. When you fought Paul Smith in Oakland, we had Paul Smith. Paul Smith was kind of like at the back end of his career, right? Looking really, it was a payday, right? He just lost to Arthur Abraham. Some people thought he won the fight. You wanted to do your homecoming in Oakland. Paul's heart probably wasn't in it as much. He messed up the weight, right? They come into me an hour before the weigh-in. We've got a problem. What? Paul Smith's overweight. Right. How much is he overweight? 4 pounds. Yeah. I'm like, 4 pounds. We're in Oakland, right? I've got you, I've got Jay, I've got Rock Nation, you with it. I'm like,
it's not what we need right
I'm
now.
like, I said, how much can you get off? They went, he's been working at it. He's
done.
4 pounds. Like, I go, guys, you can't be 4 pounds. Mm-hmm. So anyway, we go in, we let Rock Nation know. Like, I think they found out on the scale or whatever. Anyway, I'm up there. The next thing, and I'm young at the time. How many years ago was the Paul Smith fight? 10 years? 15, yeah? Right, 2015, yeah? 9 years ago.
Yeah.
Next thing, I'm sitting with Jay in a room, right? Yeah. And he's telling me that this is all my idea, our tactic to beat you, right? I'm like, I said, Jay, I don't mean to be rude. I said, my guy can't win a round against Andre, even if he's 10 pound heavier. No, I want this and I want that. And we want money and we want weight. You've got to reweigh tomorrow. You can't be more than this. And it was like everything that he asked for.
Sounds
was
about right.
Yeah, but listen, that's cool. He's got your back, right?
Yeah.
Now, he had to weigh in the next morning, right, at a specific weight. That's the standard procedure. When they do a new deal, which I wasn't involved with Golden Boy, on the weight, the first thing you do is you make Ryan Garcia weigh in on Saturday morning, right? Because if you give him the ability to just rehydrate wherever he wants to get to, you got to keep him on his toes. That's your opportunity.
Javante Davis did.
Yeah, but
he had a weight clause, but then he also had to reweigh.
Pre-contract. Now all of a sudden, you're on Friday. The guy's missed weight by 3.5 pounds. The fight's off, really. So these are the exceptions. Number one, we want money. Number two, you got to reweigh tomorrow.
For sure.
So you don't rehydrate.
For sure.
You make him sweat overnight.
For sure.
You make him panic overnight. Watch what he's eating. Watch what he's rehydrating. All this kind of stuff. The no rehydration clause at that point, when he comes in heavy, is a schoolboy mistake.
Did you tell him?
Yes, and after the fact. But it was like they want to do things on their own. Okay, no problem. Look, like we weren't contractually involved in the fight. We had not,
But you have their ear.
Yeah, and we told them. We said to the lawyer and everybody, you must make him win. No, they don't want to. They're happy. Blah blah blah. I said, okay. Now going back to UV Paul Smith, I remember the next morning we had to weigh in, and he was trying to make weight on the morning of the fight. Now you were going to beat him if he was in the shape of his life, but the advantage that you had in that respect, which you didn't need, but anyway,
I'll take it though.
Yeah, of course, because it's his fault.
Of course,
and it's Ryan Garcia's fault, and you got to punish him for that. Not just with a few $100,000, with making sure that he doesn't have a physical advantage.
Mm-hmm.
I would also like to say, and I say this a lot to people about you, after that fight, you came up to me in the ring, and the deal that I did with Jay was that he had to pay you about $125,000 extra for missing weight. And you came up to me and you said, is he a good guy? And I said, yeah, he's a great guy. He said, does he have a family? I said, yeah, he's, they're all here. Blah, blah. He said, tell him to keep the $125,000. And I'll never forget that about you. That was a very nice touch. Yeah. And I didn't take any commission off the $125,000.
That's good.
But that's a classy move. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But anyway, going back to the other fight, you're now, when those guys are in the ring, I'm looking over at the size of Ryan Garcia. He looked like a middleweight, right? I mean, he didn't even look really in shape, right?
I don't think he was in tip-top shape. I think he was in decent shape.
Yeah.
And you could tell because as the fight was going on, he'd have a big round, he'd throw a lot of punches. He needed a round or two to recover.
Yeah.
In tip-top shape, you get that back in 60 seconds.
But he had the ability to hurt Devin with every shot that he landed. I mean, the left hook's a powerful punch. The first round was a major problem.
It was.
Because and it took Devin a while to get over that.
But as you're seeing this fight unfold, what are you thinking? I mean,
I'm thinking he'll gas.
Right.
Yeah, stay in the fight. Yeah. Stay in the fight. But then tactically, Devin was really poor. Like his defense was leaky. His feet weren't really there. Then I started thinking about how well did you make the weight here? You're going through this training camp, as we said, with probably doubts in your mind as to whether this fight's even going to happen. He's always tight at the weight. I mean, how he made 35, Devin, for so long. Yeah. But then he got hurt, knocked out. I mean, he showed unbelievable heart. And to be honest with you, I think the defeat, particularly bearing in mind that Ryan was on PEDs in the ring, right, I think is psychologically and emotionally quite damaging for Devin. And I think it will take him a while to get over it. I don't think he'll fight this
publicly.
Year. Yeah, because I don't think people have actually given him the credit of what he went through that night. Like, he took a beating in that fight. Right, his face after the fight, his jaw was out here. He showed tremendous heart.
He did it, and not one time he could have easily taken an easy route. He could have easily whispered to his
legs
father.
Were gone.
He could have blinked a certain way to the doctor.
Because they would have said,
if they checked him,
100%.
It's a million ways to get out. He never took.
So imagine going through that pain. One, that the guy's coming overweight and he's massive on the night, and you can feel it and you know it, and then finding out that the guy's popped for his pre-fight test, post-fight test, and everything.
Well, let's get into that.
Mm-hmm.
When did you guys find that out? The fight's over.
Mm-hmm.
Did you go back to the locker room?
Yeah.
What's the mood like? What did you say to Devin Haney?
The mood shit. You got obviously people clearing out the room.
It's not the same amount of people post-fight
no,
when that happens
always, yeah,
as it is pre-fight, right?
Always. But there was a lot of bad blood before. I'm arguing with Ryan Garcia's dad. He's having a go at me. Like it's quite, and I'm always pretty honest. Like, and Devin will just sort of come over to me and I'll say, he just boxed poor tonight, and he boxed really poor that night. I said, listen, it's done now, but you didn't box well tonight. Yeah. That's the fact. He didn't.
What did he say?
I know. No. He knew he didn't box well, but he was like, I think, let's talk about he was massive in there. Oh, because he was massive in there. I mean, Devin rehydrates heavy. Ryan was huge that night in the ring.
But I think it was more tactical, and I think the weight played a role. But for a great boxer, somebody can be heavier than you, and that won't make the difference. I can have enough skill and enough IQ to offset that extra weight and put this boxing on you, and all the alcohol, all the bad, all the bad habits that's gonna come out of you. We're gonna see that on display.
But that's what I said to him in the ring. I said to him, "Look at him. This is before the bell. Look at him.
Yeah.
Look at the state of him."
Haney's skillful enough where he could have overcame that.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah,
he didn't. But I mean,
he got manhandled a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. When did you guys get word of the positive test, and what was the reaction from the Haney camp?
So they were very suspicious all along.
Really?
Just because I think, to be honest with you, camps are as well. Like,
well, we always think somebody's doing something.
Yeah, but also and I just, when you sign up to VADA, they were both on VADA.
Okay.
Right? Like, if you fail a test when you've signed up to VADA, you're going to get tested. I know there's always ways to try and beat a system.
That's not the one to try to beat.
Not really. No. I mean, you're getting tested a couple of times a week. Like, you don't know when it's going to come, blah, blah, blah. So, one of the problems with VADA testing, and it's not anyone's fault, is that chain takes anywhere between 2 and 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So you take your test, they package it up, it goes to Salt Lake City, it's got to get there, it sits in a lab for 4 or 5 days, then it comes back, they've got all these different sports from around the world, they test it, 3 or 4 days later, it comes back, they write up a report, comes out, So the answer to your question is probably about 3 weeks after the fight, they would get the results from the VADA test. And then it was just like, and
did you get it first, or the Haney?
It comes to the group that are on VADA, so everybody, so Golden Boy, Haney, us,
so it hit
John,
at the same time.
Yeah, and it's just like, I mean, listen, I've had 50 positive drug tests in my promotional career for different fights. I know how it goes down, but this one was just like, and it was obviously then you do your research into what it is. The amounts, there's a lot of bullshit.
Tested positive for 2 substances, right?
Yeah. I believe that actually.
Did the second one get confirmed?
I don't think it did. No, I think it was just Ostarine in terms of what come back. So, that it was, and one of the horrible things is it was on the night before the fight, and it was on fight night. Yeah. So categorically that it was in his system during the fight, not. They cycled out 12 weeks ago, and it was in him in the fight. If I'm honest, being through all these different 50 cases and stuff like that, it would lead me to believe that it was in relation to the weight cut. Right? I think enough as well. I don't believe if you're cheating on a cycle or whatever, I don't know, in camp.
It's not going to be the week of.
No,
or the night.
And you're not going to, so, he says it was contamination, but if it wasn't contamination, I believe he's probably taken that to try and help him make weight for the fight.
That's what I believe. Given the week that he popped, obviously the test takes several weeks, but he popped the week. Excuse me, he popped the week of the fight and then the night of the fight. You don't start taking things the week of the fight and the night of the fight given the rumors about how he showed up to New York in terms of how much weight he was over, I believe somebody said, take this, some form of diuretic, take it, and he didn't do his research, and he popped. But he's responsible for it.
Yeah, for sure.
It just is what it is.
But now, he's got 12 months, which he probably needs, but only if he uses that 12 months in the right way.
But he's not slowing down.
No,
he's stirring things up.
Yeah, crazy.
Everywhere he can. I mean, I think he called me out a couple weeks ago. Somebody sent me a twist of this dude.
Yeah.
That's another story. Have you talked to Devin Haney?
Yeah, a few times. Yeah. I think he's taking it rough, honestly. Yeah. Like, you know,
it's a tough loss.
And again, because of what he went through physically in that fight, and also the world that we live in so crazy now, he's getting criticized. People are going, "Oh, you're making excuses." It's like, whoa, hang on a minute. I lost to the guy. He came in heavy. He was positive for PEDs on the night. Like I think people should actually feel sorry for Devin. Do you know what I mean? Regardless of the performance, which was poor, he went through a lot that night.
Yeah, he's got to own a performance that just comes with the territory. But what he withstood in that fight, swollen jaw, I mean, it's disputable on if it was broken or not, and not looking for a way out.
Yeah.
I messaged him after as a fighter. I said, bro, I will always respect you standing up and getting through that fight.
Because that's probably one of the things we didn't know about Devin. We know he's well schooled. We know he's got a great jab. We know he's got a good IQ.
But does he have that in him?
Yeah.
And he does.
You know.
Last one for me. What is your advice to him to move forward? You know, there's some psychological things you got to overcome, some physical things. You got to build up some confidence and try to get back in position. How does he do it?
I think he has to relook at his team and his system. Do you know what I mean? I think that his dad is I love Bill. You know, he's got his back 100%. But is he necessarily the right person to take him forward strategically in the ring? I mean, he knows him inside out, and but I never liked this 3 or 4 trainer thing where they're in the change room, they're doing pads with him. AJ went through that system when he boxed Usyk. He was so lost. You know, he's got one guy working on the noodles, doing his defense. He's got another guy, and back in the day, it was Rob McCracken, who you know, and it was just Rob, and Rob got him through the Klitschko fight when he got dropped, and he sat him down. He says, listen to me. And you trust so much in this man. You had it with Virgil. Like, you don't need to listen to anyone. You don't need noodles over it. It's like, and with Devin, it's like, right, over to this guy now. So when you come unstuck in a fight, and all of a sudden you've got these 4 guys going, no, and you're going, oh, that's when you need the one guy to look you in the eyes and saying, listen, this is what you need to do right now. And I think they'd never been through that before. No one in that corner had been through that situation before. And it was all just a little bit, I think you have to look at your training team. I think you have to look at your weight. I mean, the problem is it's all very well saying you're too big for 35. And then you get to 40 and you struggle a little bit and you say, I'm too big for 40. Then you're going up against big, strong guys at 47. Do you know what I mean? And, I think Devin's chin's good enough, but he's been hurt a couple of times. He was hurt by Ryan. At 47, will the weight allow him to be a little bit more robust, or will he just not be strong enough at 47?
So you're saying he should reassess Bill being in position as a trainer and
no, I think Bill
the business side or just one?
Bill's done a great job for Devin on the business side.
You can't deny that.
Made him a lot of money, but now the strategic play, I think Bill's business-wise, Bill's going to get the best deal for Devin. 100%. I like Bill a lot.
Good.
But sometimes when it's your son, do you know what I mean? You just need that little bit of, because you're a little bit, and that's in the ring, out the ring, you're a little bit, it's my son. This is like you need that little bit of reality from a trusted source because the next steps are so important. Yeah. You mess up on the next steps. Like now, everyone's probably going to be calling for the rematch with Ryan. And that won't be till the middle of next year, right? So what are you going to do in the meantime? You're going to stay at 40? You're going to go at 47? You've got to take the right fight. He still wants a lot of money to fight. Devin's made a lot of money. And this is the situation now. You've got to really want it. I'm not saying that you may never see Devin Haney in the ring again, but I don't think he's rushing back. Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I think probably he's lost a little bit of love for the sport through what happened. Right. And I think that's, And I think he's made a lot of money. He's taken a little bit of a beating that night. Now's the questions coming. How bad do you want it? The minute a fighter starts fighting for money, just one more, I'll just like they're not the same fighter.
And you're asking yourself, do you still have it?
Yeah. Do I still have it? Do I still want it? I got, I don't know, 15 mil in the bank. You know, I've got the Cullinan, I've got this, life is good. Am I still hungry? Because, you know, once the hunger goes, I mean, you know, I know we're wrapping up, but when you walked away, I know you had, you know, some injuries and stuff like that, but did you lose the hunger for it?
I think for me, I wanted to retire probably 2 or 3 years before I did.
Why?
Because I had given up my childhood to do it. Started at 9 years old. And I'm not saying that I'm the hardest worker in the sport, but similar to how you described yourself, I work extremely hard and I'm very locked in on what I got to do. So on vacation, I'm thinking about weight. I'm thinking about next moves. I'm on the phone talking about the next fight. I wanted my freedom back. I didn't want to have to be that guy all the time.
Did you lose the love for it?
A little bit. And that's just going through the highs and lows of the sport. The physical toll, being away from family,
Politics,
lawsuits, politics. At a certain point, you look at the bank account, you do the math, and you say, I'm good. Then you have to really net out how much you really want to do it. So I think for 2 years before I wanted to walk, it wasn't the right time. And after Kovalev won, I thought it was time. And I'm thankful I didn't walk away at that time. And my pastor, he was like, bro, I think you got one more in you. I went and did the one more, and then the rest is history. So, but yeah, you have to find reasons beyond, your reasons have to evolve throughout the years. Once you've had the money, okay, that was one reason. Security, that's another reason. Belts, okay, we got that. Now, why do you want to do it? The reason I was able to keep going even when I didn't want to, is because I love to win and I hate to lose. And you seem to be like that too.
Yeah, I hate to lose. The reason I ask you that is because from a little bit of self-counseling for myself, you know, because when you live that life and you want to win so badly, it consumes your whole world. Like boxing consumes my world from 5 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock in the morning every night. Do you know what I mean? And I love boxing, like it's my entire life. But like you say, it's that one day where you might just set yourself free. Yeah. That's why when I look at Bob, I give him the respect because I go at 50, I think I'll just, you know, another little career, maybe another sport, maybe on the beach, spend more time with the kids that grown up. Do you know what I mean? So life is fascinating.
You've earned that right, brother. I appreciate you stopping by, man, and having a conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.